welcome to another episode of Salt Air. I am your host and Salt Community Manager, Janae Andrus, and I'm so glad that you are here. I'm not here alone. Tom Hatch is joining us because he always joins us. It wouldn't be Salt Air without Tom Hatch. He is the founder of Salt, and he's thrilled to be here, right, Tom?
Yes.
Excellent. So we're excited you're here at Salt Air, where we get granular on salt. So don't miss an episode. Subscribe below. Today, we are talking about requisites. Tom and I were actually discussing this the other day, which is a totally normal thing for me to say. We were discussing requisites the other day. And Tom is very sad. And he feels like I think this might be more of a therapy session than an informational session, because Tom's having a lot of sad over requisites. Tom, let's talk about that.
So how do requisites make me feel?
How do you feel?
Requisites are one of the most powerful features in SALT. And requisites in SALT are also one of the most powerful mechanisms that you have in the configuration management arsenal inside of SALT. But there are a lot of people out there who don't like requisites. They don't like requisites because they have a hard time thinking about programming in a declarative state. So when we write software, we generally write software in an imperative way. Kubernetes has done a lot of good along these lines in teaching people about writing software in declarative state, which has been really great. It's more common for me to run into people who understand writing software in declarative state and why it's just so much better. But a lot of people want to write software in an imperative state. So imperative means that we write software that says, I'm going to do this, then that, then this, then that, then this, then that. Declarative software says, this is going to happen, and this is what the world's going to look like. And declarative software is really good at saying things like, if an event occurs, then I'm going to ensure that the world looks a little different. Instead of saying, if an event occurs, I'm going to do a thingy. And so this is where requisites come in, because SALT is made to allow for imperative execution, because that makes sense to people. And SALT is made to be really easy for people to pick up. It's made so that somebody who doesn't have a programming background and somebody who hears me say declarative is better, you don't need to worry about that. You can still write imperatively because it's easier. I get that. It's made to do that. But that's
basically, Tom accepts you where you are.
That's right.
Going on theme.
But I'm still going to give you the tools to have more power. Because just because you might have a little less experience with more complex software development doesn't mean that you should choose tools that are limited in their scope and only execute in an imperative fashion. And
I think that I feel like we need a new tagline for Salt Air, for Salt. Say, come as you are, but leave better.
That's what we're working on.
Right?
So requisites allow you to define your SALT states in a completely declarative way. And so that allows you to start to say things like, this declaration inside of your SALT states, instead of it just being one after another, this declaration is only going to run if and how relative to another execution. So if we look at a really, really simple pattern in SALT, the original pattern, really, which is I'm going to install some software, configure it, and run the software. So you have the declaration that installs the software, and then the declaration that sets the configuration file for the software, and then the declaration that runs the software, starts the software. Okay. Normally, in an imperative fashion, you just say, I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do that, then I'm going to do that. But in a declarative fashion, we're able to do more powerful things. We're able to say, okay, I'm going to install the software, and then I'm going to configure it, but I'm going to require that the software was properly installed first. That means that if something bad happens and the software is not installed, we don't try and configure something that isn't installed. And then we say about starting the software, okay, I'm only going to start the software if it was installed and configured. Okay, so I'm not going to try and start the software if it didn't properly get installed and configured, because then we would be leaving the system in a bad state. And imperative software leaves systems in bad states. And we're configuring systems. We can't leave them in a bad state. That would be unacceptable. But the next thing we can do with requisites is that we can start to say, well, the next time I run this, if something changes, I can reapply and get back to my magical state. And again, this is very important for declarative programming. We cannot have solid declarative programming without another construct called idempotency. Idempotency means that every time we run something, it is going to consistently bring us back to the same place. Idempotency is a very, very powerful concept inside of SALT, and SALT is built on idempotency. Some people in the past have accused SALT of not being idempotent. They are liars. SALT has been idempotent since day one. So, idempotency means that now we can say something like, we're going to run again, and now I'm going to say, hey, is the software installed? Yeah, great. I'm not going to try and install it again. Hey, do I need to configure that software? Is it installed? Yep, we checked. We didn't have to try and install it again because of idempotency. And then when we start the service, we can say, hey, is the software configured? Yeah, great. I can make sure that it's running. Is it already running? Okay, I don't have to start it. But since we have idempotency and we have declarative programming, we can have a requisite on the service that says, wait, if the config changes, maybe I need to restart that software. Maybe I need to restart the service. And so that's where we're able to use what we call a watch requisite to say, okay, if something else makes a change, then I need to do something else to bring that service to its final state. And so when we use those requisites, again, it allows us to suck everything into the right state in a consistent, definitive, deterministic way. And that, again, gives us a final result that is clean and accurate and highly reliable. And that's what we need to have when we're doing things like configuring a system. Scripts don't do that for us. And imperative approaches don't do that for us, which is why I would discourage using a purely declarative approach. The last thing that I want to say about requisites is that we've got another project that's an up-and-comer called Item. Item uses the concepts of declarative programming that we have inside of SALT. Same thing, you can do it imperative or declarative. But one of the cool things about Item is that it's made primarily for clouds. Most cloud automators out there are very imperative in their execution. But with Item, since we've got requisites, those definition chains can be completely parallelized. And so with Item, we've been able to show that you can configure your clouds in sometimes 100th of the time that it took before. Because when you use requisites, you can say, oh, these are the only things that need to be executed in sequence. And now Item can execute everything in parallel. So that now it can go out and hit the cloud and configure multiple deployments and tons of resources in the cloud all at the same time. And then it only has to wait on the things that it knows it has to wait on, because it's able to say, all I need to do is ensure that there's a finite state. When we're able to look at the things that we're programming against as a finite state that we're trying to get to, then we can fundamentally change how we write software. We can make software more reliable. We can make software faster. And in the end, we can actually make it significantly easier to run and more reliable. I've said reliable too many times. We do these things.
How does that make you feel?
That makes me feel good inside.
But in all seriousness, and And I apologize if the parody of the therapy bothered anyone. We are very pro therapy over here.
We've needed
we all need and are in therapy, obviously. No, but really though, Tom, when we're talking about how it makes you feel, it sounds like the way you've walked through the applicability of requisites and just how useful they are. I know it does make you sad that they aren't utilized more, especially understanding how useful they are and how much of a difference they make.
Yep. Use requisites. They're good. I put a lot of energy into making those things work. They work real good.
Take advantage of it. That's what he's saying. Also, I'm really glad you brought up item. For anyone who wants to get more exposure to item, if you go to saltproject.io, which is our website for Salt Project and your source of truth for all things Salt Project, saltproject.io has our community calendar on it. And you can see on there that there are several different Twitch streaming sessions where we just do item cloud streaming. So you can watch that go on. And that's a really great way to get more exposed to item. So one of many ways. So that's a good one. Thanks for joining us as we got granular on salt, particularly requisites today. Use them and have a great day. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.
Thanks.